Okay, thank you. Welcome to this presentation. This presentation is recorded live streaming, so that's the microphone. You know, we're going to convey our voice to you directly, but we'll have to pass the microphone so that everybody who wants to listen to this later on or at this time would be able to listen to us. So on the first slide, you have the topic of our presentation: International Exchange in ICT, NSF-funded Capstone course, and trip of 13, not 12, MPICT student to CFI-Paris. My name is Pierre Thiry, and I have with me Michael McKeever from Santa Rosa Junior College and Richard Grotegut, who are both partners of the MPICT Center, who received this grant. This is what we're going to talk about quickly, so there is a certain order in that. You know, you can see there's going to be very quickly presentation of what MPICT is. Most of you know about this center. It's one of the centers from NSF-ATE. We were founded 3 years ago. Our mission is to coordinate and promote improved ICT education in the, you know, what we call the Mid-Pacific region. We have 5 regional partners, and 2 of these partners are here with me, and many of those have been participating in this project. So besides this, we received an announcement March 6th last year, and I quoted from this announcement. Basically, we have 6 weeks to come up with a proposal for, an international exchange project, and I wrote in red what was significant: small groups of U.S. community college students and their faculty mentors through active collaboration with counterparts in international side. It's a pilot. It must be located in Europe. They have 100,000 to give us, and then you have to do that in 4 weeks, okay? Come up with a proposal. So the presentation we're going to give you today is addressed to the general audience of high tech. But we have 2 special purposes, and I know some of you in this room have one of these interests, and so we will attend to it. The first group of people is NSF-ATE Center representative who considered to apply for such we expect when NSF gave us this grant and they funded 5 centers, they said next year it's going to be global. It's not going to be Europe. It's going to be all over, and there will be more of them. So I will give some advice and some suggestion to centers who are interested to do international exchange, how to go about that. The other one, which is very exciting, and I will let Michael talk about it more, is that part of this grant was to create a capstone course, and then it's available. All the pieces are there. Any instructor who wants to teach Cisco, CCNA can use it, and we already have takers for this. And it's a really good return for the investment of NSF. But I think everybody will find interesting what we did today, what we did this year. First of all, you cannot put a proposal like this in 4 weeks. That's my first advice. You must have advance notice. So you must have done some preliminary work, and certainly I was a little lucky. I knew 6 months in advance that something was coming down the pike, but I had already worked with a group in Paris, okay? So first of all, San Francisco, Paris have a digital sister accord, and then in 2008, we at San Francisco had been approached through Cisco by a group in France, the Centre de Formation Industrielle in Paris, who wanted to do exchange. They do a lot of that in Europe. You know, in the US, we kind of, we know it all. But over there, they have people coming from Croatia, people coming from Germany, back and forth, exchanging their experience, etc. And they tried to reach out to the UK, they told us, and they didn't get much response. So they went to the US, and we responded. And so I was visiting Belgium, which is my home, my native country, in 2009 during Christmas vacation. and I made a special trip to Paris to meet these folks, and we start talking about getting together, doing something together. We had an attempt, actually, you have the picture there. We had a telepresence meeting, and we had a little project that had some results, but it was not funded. It was a lot of volunteer work, but gave us the basis for connecting with that group, and when the grant came, we could apply for it. So what is this group that we worked with in France before we go into the project? It's very interesting, you know. First, it is a school which is owned by the Chamber of Commerce of Paris. And they have a program which is really unique, which is very common in Europe and in other countries. It's a cooperative program. The students have to be between 16 and 25. Most of them are around 20. They have to commit to, they have to find a job. And the job would be an internship. And the internship will be a 2-year internship, two weeks at work. And so if you see my graph there, these are the second-year students. And then at the beginning of the year, the manager has already arranged when they're going to be in the classroom. And in blue, this is the classroom week. Very important for us when we did our planning, because we wanted to meet them in their classroom. We also wanted to find out when they would be in the industry. So we were able to arrange our trip based on that, that schedule. So there is another mission of that school, is what's called Formation Continue. They have evening courses for practitioners. For the students who are there, for the 2-year program, it's like an associate degree if you want. Guess what happens at the end of the 2 years? 85% have a job. Guess where? Where they were working already, okay? So that's kind of what's very exciting with this way of operating. And they get paid on top of that. So they get paid to go to school and to do their internship, and after that they get a job. I would present the project into 3 parts. The first part, we had to create a capstone course, and it was created at Ohlone College, and Richard is going to talk more about how we set it up. And it was actually created by Michael and Daniela Bedic from Ohlone College. Then we had to deliver the course, and we delivered it with over a 2-month period, March 22nd to May 27th. The last week, we had 13 American students who were in France. So the final project was done together with the French students and presented in a very exciting way we'll talk to you about. So these are the 3 parts of the project. We'll let Richard explain a little bit how we recruited the students.
Oh, thank you, everybody. We developed a flyer, and we had a sort of a captive audience already. We had our regional colleges in place, and most of the students were involved in the Cisco Academy program. So those of you that are familiar with that program, it's standardizes the curriculum. All students are, learning the same things at every one of the schools, and needed to have either been enrolled in the 4th class in the sequence or have completed that 4th course in the CCNA sequence. So we developed a flyer. We collaborated on that over a period of about a month, and tried to distribute that to all the partner schools and to our students in our Cisco programs, and to see who were interested in participating. It would be an additional course that they would take beyond their course of study for CCNA, a capstone course. It would be a 2-unit course additionally, and we were successful in actually attracting quite a number of students.
But they didn't have to pay for it.
Well, that's true. They didn't have to pay for the course, but here in California at a community college, it's the $26 a unit, so it was a $52 course that students could have paid, but that was waived through the grant.
But we have a partner from Chucky Meadows Community College in Reno, and 4 of their students were able to join the course, and MPICT was able to pay the out-of-state tuition as well.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So there is a big issue when you want to do something like this, is that you have to organize the trip. And I was very lucky that my college is doing study abroad, and they connected me with Accent. accent is one-stop shop. And that was wonderful. So they took charge of, you know, getting the information from the students and the faculty, and make all the arrangements. They had a residence, which is not far from the school that we were going to, and made all the arrangement. They gave us an orientation, you know. They took care of all lodging and local transportation. I have a picture here of my teacher ID that they gave me, and they gave a student ID to the students. You can get discount in, you know, in all kind of, you know, activities there. And then the little thing on the left is like a clipper card. It's called Navigo, and that gives you access to all the metro and the buses in Paris for a week. And so they made, and they also gave 50 euro for subsistence to every student and faculty every day. So it was really fantastic. So I would recommend that if you have a project and you carry people to another country, that you try to find a one-stop shop, because that saves a lot of trouble for me.
Well, we had to have a course created, and because of the time frame, we didn't have the year or year and a half lead time to develop a course and run it through our curriculum committee and have it approved. But we have a mechanism, and fortunately at Ohlone we're a single college district in the East Bay, here in the Bay Area in Fremont, and have a very close relationship with administration and student services and the curriculum committee. We were able to quickly put together a selected topic course. This is the official course outline that was approved to allow us to then put the class into our schedule so that students could then register for it. There were a couple things we needed to do for the course. We needed to make sure that enrollment was controlled, because the students had to meet the criteria, so we didn't want to open it to all students. So there's a limitation on enrollment. It says enrollment in this class requires recommendation by the program coordinators at each of the respective MPICT regional partner community colleges. So any student going online and seeing this course and thinking, oh, that's interested, trying to register, would have to contact through me to be able to get that approval. Again, I'm not sure if other schools like City College could put together a selected topic, large schools like that.
This is the beauty of working in a team, is that if I had to do, I could never do this project by myself. City College is a big operation and would not allow, for instance, what happened is that the Ohlone College was able to register all the students and bill MPICT for their tuition. This is something I don't think I can do in my college. Students have to pay their own fee and then get reimbursed, whatever. So the flexibility of that college is one of the reasons we didn't hesitate to give it, and I have to say, you know, that was fantastic.
Once the class was created and on the schedule, and it began midterm, we started in March, whereas our spring semester typically starts at the end of January. So it was a late start class, had this limit on enrollment, but then once students are registered in the class, in our automated system, and they do this all full online, there's a mechanism that they have to pay for the class within a week or 10 days, and if they don't pay, it's all controlled by software in the system, then they're dropped. They also receive notices, and we had told all the students that the grant would pay for this, and I had told everybody at my college that this was, the students were not to be charged, including the out-of-state students. And everybody knew, but when it got down to the point where they were registering, somebody needed to put that into the software. And, someone who, classified staff member, had to be given direction to do that. And that didn't happen right away in the first week. So there were students who got notice of having to pay, but it was easy to work out. Students applied online, so all community colleges here in California use the same kind of CCC apply system to apply, and out-of-state students can use that same system. And then once their application was accepted and they received their ID and become an Ohlone College student, then they can log on to our website, web advisor, which is the mechanism we use, and register for the courses, and it went very, very well. We were able to fill the course. Aloni benefited. It was a win-win for us. All the faculty salaries for the students, all the fees for the students, the out-of-state tuition was paid by the grant, and Aloni was able to collect the apportionment. So that worked out. It was a nice, easy sell for me to do that.
Okay.
Thanks.
So I will let Michael take over now, because he's the one who really did this capstone course. It was really fantastic.
Hopefully you're starting to get the idea that this was not an easy thing to do in a short period of time. And having a team of people made the biggest difference. And as Pierre said, having the connection, the French connection, if you will, already in place really is what made that possible. Having the relationships that we had amongst ourselves and with somebody over in Europe, which is where the grant needed to go. So leverage whatever kinds of relationships you have, and if you're going to go for something like this, kind of think about what tools you have and what resources you have that you can bring to bear in order to be successful in the application for one of these projects. It was worth it. It was a lot of work. All three of us and more did a lot in order to pull this thing off. The class, as has been said, was a capstone course, so it built on standardized curriculum, as Richard said, that's used throughout the world. So that was an easy sell, and that was a relatively easy thing to do, to collaborate with amongst all of our partner colleges and with the students overseas, because we all had a standard starting point. I knew where everybody was, and the point of this was to, we designed the class so that it would introduce them to the next steps, something that would encourage them in their continuing education and also help them to decide what career path they might want to go down. And for the technical parts, there were in the networking and security world, there's different tracks you can go down, and so we gave them advanced topics in the different areas, in the subject areas. The class was taught in English, which was good for me. Pierre was and Richard also were our translators, but one of the things that we did was, at the recommendation from a colleague at my college, was to give all of the students this book, which is Culture Shock, and that's the title of a series, and then there's the country you're going to. So this was Culture Shock France. So we gave this to all of our students here to read before going over to Paris, and also before they were communicating online with the students in Paris. Anybody been to France? Differences a little bit between here and there in a lot of ways. So we didn't want the ugly Americans going over. We wanted people to be able to integrate nicely and to adapt and adopt the culture over there fairly easily. We'll talk a little bit about some of the things that they learned, but the bullets here are pointing out what we wanted them to do. So it was a matter of learning about the differences in the educational system on both sides. We wanted to bring them to the job sites so they could see how jobs are different on both sides. And the biggest thing, as you all probably know, is we just can't teach students about technical knowledge and information. It's the soft skills. We keep hearing that from employers all the time. So this trip was a lot about soft skills. How do you work in a team? One of the biggest issues we had was the 9-hour time zone difference. We'd start a lecture, Daniela or I would begin at 8 o'clock in the morning. So it was a little earlier for students here in Reno and around the Bay Area. In Paris, it was 5 in the afternoon. After they've already been in class all day, after their brains are tired, and after the culture there's a little different. 35 hours a week, you're done. 5 weeks vacation. The students in Paris were all volunteering. This was not an extra part of their course, right? It was on top of their full day, starting at 8 and going until 5, well, 3:30 or 4 is when they would get out. So they stayed late, and to be honest, it showed. The interest was not always there when we were online. Their attention span was drifting. The last online class that we had prior to going to Paris, the weather there was about 80 degrees. There were 3 people in the classroom in France at the time when we were online with everybody else here. And the instructors were sort of, they were apologetic about it, but that's kind of the way that it was. So one of the lessons learned from this was online instruction's great. We were able to reach a lot of people at once, but having some kind of a connection before you're online exclusively makes a huge difference. So Pierre and I went over in January to meet with the faculty, to meet with the students, and sort of to introduce ourselves. So they knew us personally before they knew us online, and that made a big difference. So some kind of a connection before you do something internationally makes a big difference. Just the virtual presence, while it's good for communicating some information, is not 100% of the solution. So we were disoriented. That's my disorientation of the Eiffel Tower and the Golden Gate Bridge. It was all very disorienting. This scenario, this goes back to, I led a tour up to the wine country yesterday. So our scenario was a merging of two wine companies, one in Paris and one in California. They had to merge their technologies. So the students in both countries had a common basis of information, and we created a scenario where they had to merge these two diverse companies. We built in problems that they had to solve. They had to recognize the problems, they had to identify them, and they had to come up with solutions. There was no right or wrong answer in their presentations, there were just options. And so in the delivery of the course, we gave them lots of information that they could use in the solution to this scenario. They could choose to do something, they could choose not to. They just had to explain why. So it was very open-ended. In all of their final project presentations represented that. They had a wide variety of solutions and scenarios that they came up with. But in addition to just the technical issues that were here and the logistical issues, there were these soft skills that we're always hearing about from employers that students need to have when they come to work. And I don't need to go into that with you, but this really helped to focus that with the students. How do we deal with a 9-hour time zone difference? The cultural differences. One of the students exclaimed, one of the Parisians said, "I could never work in the United States. I could not live without my 5-week vacation. 5 weeks is just barely enough." So there's, I want to recount one other interesting observation. When we were on our site visits, we were at a bank, a very large bank, and many of the IT workers, ICT workers, were not from France. They were from out of country. And there are about, we were told, 2,000 jobs available for ICT workers in France, mainly in Paris at that time, because they were having a hard time filling them. And I think in part it's because of the culture of at least the network security part of the house that we were dealing with. You're on 24/7, it's intense. You have to solve problems right away. It's rapid fire. The bank deals in billions of dollars of transactions a day. If something goes wrong, you have to fix it yesterday. You have to proactively fix things. So they're spending lots of money on equipment and infrastructure to prevent problems from happening. The lifestyle over in Paris and France is not conducive to that. And that's just my personal observation. And so maybe that's why there are not as many ICT Parisians as there are from other countries, and they're from all around the world. I mean, it's a very cosmopolitan city, as you know. So that's just my anecdotal observation of that. This is the environment that we taught the class in. It uses Illuminate, Blackboard, Collaborate, whatever it's called these days. You know how the companies are constantly merging. So in California, we have something called CCC Confer, which pays for the licenses for all of the community colleges to use this platform. It's an online environment, so you can see there's video. We've got chat going on over here between the students. There's polling. There's a wealth of information that's available in this. Tomorrow, James and I are doing a little presentation on how this environment works if you want more on that. But it's a very rich environment. We're able to do slides and share desktops, and so that's how we were able to communicate back and forth to the students in Paris. It's all web-based, so the Parisians were online, connected to this, as were the students throughout California. It was a very rich, and I like to think of this as my virtual classroom, without any walls. Pretty much anything that you can do inside of a classroom, you can do here remotely and quite extensively. But again, I want to reiterate that it's a big deal to, oh yeah, thank you. To make that physical connection before you're just online, that was that's how I teach my classes as well. And as Pierre is reminding us, what we're able to do is to archive this entire presentation, the entire session, which captures the students' questions, all of the audio, all the video, anything that's up on the screen can be replayed later on in addition to closed captioning. If we did not use closed captioning, but closed captioning is available here. So all that's archived and available for replay at any time by faculty or by the students if they miss a lecture. So any of the students miss it, they can watch it again within half an hour. It's available up on the internet for them to see or to watch or to review. The course itself was just, as I had mentioned, alluded to, a little bit of everything in this networking environment that we were teaching in, sort of advanced topics you're seeing on the bullet list there. We had assignments for them to do, prerequisites for a wealth of material and information, which is available if anybody wants this. We gave it away to 50-something faculty members down in San Jose at a Cisco conference a couple of weeks ago. Got a thumb drive, we can give it to you today. The whole course, including all the lectures and the archives and all that. So that's one of the things that when Pierre approached me about this project and to develop the course, I wanted to create something, and for those of you that have been to Synergy, that would scale. So this is just not a one-time thing. So there's a lot of effort and a lot of work that went into this project, but a little bit of selfishness on my part. I wouldn't mind traveling anywhere else in the world to do this class again. And so we can repeat this very easily. The work is all there. We can repeat it. We can do it with multiple countries. When we were in San Jose, we had interest from a school in Ottawa. We've had interest in China, Chile. Another school in Paris is interested in doing this as well. How we do it, if we have money, it's basically $50,000 to bring 12 or 13 students overseas. You don't have to do it that way. You don't have to have the 50K. You can still do international collaboration using these tools and coming up with a program that you've got in some way that translates to what somebody else is doing overseas as well, where you've got sort of common ground. So again, don't copy necessarily what we did, but these are sort of the tips and the lessons that we learned from this whole process. It made a big deal being over there. Once we brought the students there and they interacted with one another, I saw learning and education, and I just stood back, and they took off on their own. I saw some just amazing concepts and learning. One student, he had a quote that we may have in here. He said, "We got to a crossroads, that we got stuck at some point. We either could do it the hard way or the harder way." And I chose the harder way. He chose the harder way. And it was, for the technically inclined, it was route redistribution with EIGRP and OSPF on IP version 6 was his solution, if that means anything to anybody. So how he was going to do that was his solution. We missed lunch that day trying to come up with a solution, and he and I both at about 3 o'clock in the morning figured out how to do it. So that was his solution. He went through that process. But he and his team really pushed the envelope, and all the teams did that in various ways. And so when we got these students together, their skill sets that they brought individually from their different cultures, their different jobs and their different backgrounds, really energized each other. And so there's a lot of interaction that took place. There was a lot of discussion that took place, and we put them into situations, if you want me to go into that, about when they were talking together. What's the difference between your educational system? Whose job is better? And two students who had similar jobs, one in the States, one here in, it was Jane, in San Jose area, and one in Paris, sat down and they compared. Whose job is better? Who gets paid more? Who likes their job more? Because their tasks were similar. And the two of them came up with, well, my job in Paris is better because we have 5 weeks vacation. That's kind of what it came down to in the healthcare. I mean, they did the taxes back and forth, and they did the costs for healthcare, and so those were their metrics, and they came up with that. And it's something that they kind of went through and did on their own. So we had more discussions about that, but the jobs, the educational systems, the students learned a lot from each other. We had about 3 students who went over who left applications there to work in a couple of industries in a couple of places. We had some on-site tours. Did you want to talk a little about telepresence?
All of us. We had, Cisco was a partner in this. We were really sorry that the launching of the Capstone, they were supposed to give us a telepresence meeting. That would have really helped for the connection. That did not happen, so we had, but at least the conclusion on May 27 was very successful. So you could see a picture that Richard captured from a video. On the left-hand side, it's a little hard to see on this screen. This is our team. We were in the Cisco headquarters in Paris, and we were in the auditorium, and we were connected with Richard, who wasn't able to come with us to France, and the person there is Daniela, the other teacher, and several students, because out of the 24 students, 13 came to France. So there were American students who participated in the project, who were able to give their presentation from San Jose to Paris and vice versa. So we had like an hour and a half of communication using Cisco Telepresence. That was very energizing. It was really a great experience. And so we had we actually paid for the folks who came from Reno and from Santa Rosa to stay in a hotel in San Jose, because they had to get up at 7:30 to be on the presentation. And for us in Paris, Michael and I were in Paris with our students and with the French teachers. We arrived there at 4:30 p.m. and it was a very, very energizing presentation, and the students did really, really well. So this was, I showed you the schedule that had the dark blue weeks where they were in class. That was the first week. The second week, they were going to industry. And we had a vision that didn't plan out. We were trying to do job shadowing, but it was too complicated because the industries required a lot of paperwork, etc. So we put away the job shadowing. But what we did instead, with the help of Cisco and the CFI, we visited 4 companies. Michael talked a little bit about Société Générale. That was the last day of the visit. That was certainly the highlight of our visits. But we visited 4 different places, and we were hosted by the IT personnel, and people were talking the same language. We touched, the hardware. We had the presentation on how they organize their network. It was very, very interesting to see the different places. A little story is that the Paris City Hall data center is just about 200 meters from the River Seine, and in a basement. And you can imagine if there is floods or something like that, and they're talking about moving it somewhere higher. So they still have problems like that, because historically these are the kind of things. We also went to France Telecom, a switching center. You can see one of our students who is making a connection there on the France Telecom switching center, which is very similar to what we have here. But it's not very often that you can go into an AT&T switching center. They were very, very open to us. A visit of Société Générale was amazing, what Michael said. You would imagine go to Chase and go to their headquarters and see their IT systems. It was great the way we were received by them. At the end of the trip, we hosted a luncheon for them. And again, I'm really this picture didn't come out so well on the screen. They're much better on my computer here. So this is the team of the director of the French school, the manager, and one of the teachers who was really instrumental in making the student engage with that. And this is the table of the students. So we had a good time bringing them back from there. That was the week where they were working, so they were giving the afternoon off from their company to come visit with us before we left.
Can I want to mention something?
Yes, please.
One of the important criteria that we found was having faculty on the other side to work with us. So it wasn't just us, and indeed we initially wanted to pay the faculty there to help in the development of the course, but because of the rules with NSF, we couldn't use our funds to pay foreign faculty. But they were still very completely instrumental, and it would not have worked without them. There were times when we came up with problems, and Alexandra, the English teacher, came up with some wonderful scenarios for integrating the students with each other. In some workshops and some projects that they worked on together. The faculty there prepared the students prior to our arrival, so we had been communicating back and forth, so we're on the same page, and we had the same expectations from the students on both sides. And it was kind of fun amongst the faculty to quip and to discuss the differences in the students, their motivations and what they were doing. So again, having a faculty on the other side that you can cooperate with and work with, I think was a pretty important part of this whole process as well. And we also got to exchange wine. They gave us French wine and we brought California wine.
So this is this was talked already about earlier by Michael. Okay, the capstone course is something that's packaged. It's a product of this project. It's already been disseminated, passed around at the Cisco, and you can contact us or Michael. We make it available to you for free, and this is something which I think is very important. We expect that this is going to be carried over in the future, and we will really want this to happen. What are the lessons learned? We'll get at the end of this presentation. Prepare ahead, don't wait for the RFP. So for the NSF Center here, if you have something in mind, it may be worth to really do some homework, because if their proposal comes in, it probably is something that I would really recommend to go after. The reputable one-stop shop. I tell you that for me as a project manager, that solved a lot of problems. They were really professional, and they were local also, and then they had all the facilities that we needed. Create a component of project which can be easily duplicated without the need of the grant. This we have to give credit to NSF to teach us synergy, teach us about scaling, and Michael to really absorb that and making sure that the work that we have done is not a one-shot deal, but it can be duplicated. Different time zones are challenging. Michael mentioned that to you. That's really an issue. So if we do something with Ottawa, it's going to be easier because there is only 3-hour difference. So foreign language fluency is a plus for at least one of the leaders. You know, I've been teaching here in California for 28 years. This is the first time in my career that my French give me a little perk, you know, so that's great. Engage an industry partner for us, Cisco. That was very important, you know, and having their yeah, sure.
I wanted to add one or two comments. One is that there was a lot of work, but it was well worth it. And one of my motivations for going through this process was I wanted to change some lives with the students, because we knew this was going to be, you know, a significant event. Some of the students had not been out of California, some had not been out of their county, certainly not been out of the country. So we knew going into this that, you know, we wanted to pick students that would both benefit from it and be able to take this experience and bring it back, and it would have an impact in their lives. And it did. There are a number of them that expressed that, and we expect to see some returns on that in the future. So a lot of work, but the students really made it worthwhile. It was a valuable process.
Yeah. So we are coming at the end of the presentation, and so I wrote down here all the people, and I missed some, but certainly, you know, we thank NSF and the OISC for offering this fantastic opportunity. Michael and the JELA, who did the create and teach the course. Richard and Ohlone College for making this possible. I mean, this is amazing what they can do in that college, you know. So the CFI team, Tristan Gilloire, the director, Cécile Montier, I won't say their name, Christian, Rahali, and Alexandra are really our friends. You know, we spend some time with them. And then the Cisco Academy team, Christophe Delinsec, the manager in France, John Jerky, our manager here, Isaac, who was hosting us in San Jose, and our students. So this is the end of our presentation. We just have a few minutes for questions. Yes?
I had submitted one originally and was... Hi, Philip Davis, Geotech. We had submitted one originally, and it was kicked back by NSF saying that we were not enough students. We were proposing 8 for the 100,000. They seem to want 10 or more. Can you tell me how you arrived at your number?
So this is a very good question. When I send my proposal, so you heard the question. So the, Phil got his proposal not accepted. Mine, first I wanted to bring the 24 students for 4 days in the States, in France, because that would cost me too much money to bring them for a longer time. They sent it back and they said, send 12 for 2 weeks. So that's what I did. So I guess the key number is 12. That's what I would say.
So we redid our proposal, got it to 10, and we were going to go to the Netherlands. And the price was the best price I could get for the accommodations and all the facilities and stuff. It was going to be about $6,800 per student. Can you tell me what your cost was on a per student basis?
The good thing is to work with Accent. Okay, we had to pay they charge about $3,200 for the 10 days, and that includes the 50 euros a day that they were giving us. And then we had to pay for the fare. But the fare, they were able to get a very good fare for us. It was just $1,200 per student round trip. So I think it's really worth to get the right connection. They were staying in a student housing for American students, so they had the telephone direct to the US for free in that student housing. So I think it's worth doing some research and then finding the right connection.
So about 45.
Yeah, about 4,500, yeah. Any other question?
Yeah. The question is about, you mentioned ICT is going to be global too. There is a thing called ICT for development. It's started by the United Nations. Is there any knowledge you have, or is there any connection with the Office of International Science and Engineering? And
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the question is that the ICT for development, that means the restriction of this grant, it had to be in Europe. But then now they want to open it up. So we have been contacted through one of our NVC member about possibility to do something with Chile. And so we will look into that. And we have, Richard has gone to China, and so we have some requests to work with China. So we really open it up beyond Europe.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So hi, I'm James. I direct MPICT, and I was not so directly involved in the project, but had the pleasure of observing it. And there's some things that I think from a big picture standpoint are important here. I can't remember the last time I had a conversation with an employer where they did not make the point that technical knowledge and skills are not enough to be successful in the workplace. There are no multiple choice tests when you get on the job. You've got to be able to communicate effectively, you've got to be able to solve problems, you've got to be able to work in teams, you've got to be culturally sensitive. All of those kinds of things are really, really important. The response to that for us as educators are to try to create more real-world or real-world-like experiences for students where they have to be in real-world kinds of environments and do these kinds of things, work in groups, solve problems, communicate effectively, present their findings. So the fact that this was a scenario-based learning exercise, I think, is a really important component here. People had to do all of that stuff in order to be successful. It wasn't enough to take a test in the end. I think another component of this that was really, really interesting is the fact that it was delivered across multiple institutions at once. And this is something that involved 5 schools here in California and Nevada. So you're teaching students at multiple schools at once, and then also schools abroad. So there's the collaboration, the fact that you can actually serve students at multiple institutions at once, I think is fabulous, because that creates all kinds of possibilities. The Capstone experience by itself, I think, is important, because you are giving students an opportunity to synthesize and apply their knowledge and skills at the end of a progression of courses. And in order to do that, they really have to get the stuff that they've been taught along the way. Another piece of this that I think was really good was that it was based on common curriculum
across all of these different schools. The Cisco Academies in 170 countries. This year they have 1 million students. So here's a way to find common ground across multiple schools. And the Cisco Academy is common ground for many, many schools here in California. This was an educational exchange abroad. It doesn't have to be. It could be a collaboration between you at your school and you at your school and you at your school to create some sort of a real world scenario. I think you would probably agree that students step up to another level when they're doing something that's perceived as real or real world. So the fact that they have to present their findings at the end of this project to a panel of Cisco representatives and business representatives and teachers from both countries, they rise to a new level with that kind of challenge.
We let them be in charge of their learning is really what it came down to. And that's what allowed them to rise to that level. And that's why they exceeded my expectations, because we got out of the way. And this environment allowed that to happen.
So this is something that, you know, the Cisco Academy might adopt to integrate into their program and have more impact. So there's, I guess, two audiences in the room. There's the people who are associated with NSF centers, and they're thinking, I'd love to get some money to do something like this. So there's part of this story that's good for you, which is, you know, here are the elements of a successful project that can help you get a grant for that. But you can do this without a grant. If you can find partners at different schools that are interested. I mean, the collaboration platform is free to all California community colleges. You can get it cheap wherever you are. So these kinds of collaborations across, you know, silos, I think, are really fabulous.
I think we're running out of time. I don't know. I think we are holding you guys for your next presentation. If there is other question, go ahead or talk to us directly. Yes. A comment, please.
The comment is, I just been to American Society of Engineering conference in Vancouver, and there's a group within ASEE which is trying to globalize engineering, and they have developed a criteria. And my question to Cisco person is, if they have Cisco being operated in many different countries, I think it's a very good idea to globalize, and this is one of the courses which helps not only the student, but to understand the cultural and communication issues and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, folks, thank you for your attention, and good luck if you want to apply.